Hello, welcome everybody to another week of CLCI Live. Before we begin, I would like you to like, share, subscribe, comment on this video, interact with us. We will answer your questions on the live. We will call you out by name, feature your comment, and address it as such.
Way to sell that. Nicely
Yes.
done.
And we're at the end of our Marketing 101 series. We talked a bit about AI marketing. We talked about, I forgot, what are the other ones we did?
Using your competition.
Using
Jobs
a competition.
to be done.
Jobs to be done.
Jobs to be done. All very valuable concepts.
And we're getting to the heart of the matter. We're getting to the one thing you can never take away from a person when you market to them, their brain. We're talking about neuromarketing.
Are we getting to the brain of the matter then?
Yes, that we are.
And some might say that our brain is connected to our heart, so it's fair. Either way it works.
When are we going to head there?
What?
Well, when we talk about the heart, like we're being metaphorical. We're
Yes.
talking really about the brain when we're talking about the heart, our emotions, our feelings. It's all in the brain.
Anthony, do you have those?
No. I'm talking about this from a purely hypothetical and theoretical view.
You don't believe emotions are real? Is that what you're saying?
I don't have emotions. And I make all my decisions based off of logic and facts.
How do facts make you feel, Anthony?
I don't feel any about them. Facts.
Darn it. I was hoping to catch you there. So this is a topic that has fascinated me for a very long time, and something that I love and I hold dear, and I employ some of these tactics whenever possible and encourage others to do the same. Not to be manipulative, but just because they work. But so I could go on and on, but in your research, what is neuromarketing?
I had to dig through a lot of, there was the research that you posted and I did my own research, and it's kind of tough. And I feel like neuromarketing, or let me take a step back. I feel like coaching is susceptible to two forms of woo, which is like the spiritual, transformative, feel-good woo-woo, and the sciencey, pseudoscience woo. And it's like that's almost tending towards that, but there are some parts where this does make sense. There are scientific studies that show you can affect somebody's attention or what gets them energized or even buying things, and you can look at how does that reflect in the brain. But there's a lot of things where I'm like, I don't know. I'm a bit skeptical towards it. So
What are you skeptical about? I'm just curious.
The things that aren't exactly grounded in looking at somebody's brain response. So when a lot of people talk about neuromarketing science, people are in labs, they're getting MRIs done. You're actually looking at where people's eyes are moving and how they're responding, and you're sort of doing that way. Where I'm having a hard time is translating the science into action for people to take in their marketing. And I feel like a lot of quote unquote neuromarketing scientists and marketers are preying on regular marketers to try to sell maybe a product that doesn't pan out so well.
I see what you mean. Okay. I see what you mean there. I mean, you're talking about like literal tactics of somebody saying, if you do these things, I've got these tips and tricks, follow them and things will be awesome. Yeah. I can see that. Absolutely. Especially because the knowledge is out there. Really, ultimately, it's not like a secret. There might be some stuff that's secret that we've learned after the fact that other companies are studying and things that they're doing that we don't know about. But
true. We could talk a lot about social media and how Facebook maybe uses neuromarketing.
A lot of
sort of
Amazon, all kinds of
Amazon.
This has been going on our whole lives. I don't think that people realize to what degree our lives are shaped by marketing. Like everything out there is marketing. You can't go anywhere without seeing it somewhere, and to think that that doesn't affect us on some level is to be completely naive, I think. Jen?
You asked about what neuromarketing was, and I wrote one of the definitions that I heard that I thought was super simple, and it was how emotions and intuition shape our decisions. And then I wrote in parentheses, AKA subtle mind control.
Yep, that's exactly what I came to conclude.
There's a documentary that's like 4 hours long. It's called, oh shoot, what is the name of it? Anthony, I made you watch it.
I know.
It's depressing.
It's,
And it's
it's the guy who was the nephew of Freud or something like
Freud,
that.
yeah. And it's sort of where propaganda was born and where a lot of these things were born. And it was basically his job, essentially. And he's one of those people that was like at peace treaties and all of these things.
Century of the Self.
Century of the Self, but nobody ever said who he was. Like there was like, he just always, you just see pictures and there he is. And like, there's never an explanation for who this guy is and why he's there. But he has had such a major effect on modern day, and people don't even know who he is. And it's just this very crazy kind of thing.
Edward Bernays.
Edward Bernays, that's right. Don't get saucy with me, Bernays.
He did the Torches of Light or something like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
where the cigarettes were not selling to women.
Right.
And so there's this big public something or other going on, and he hired socialites. He literally hired socialite women to put on their best dress and at a specific moment light a cigarette and all smoke, and female cigarette sales skyrocketed like crazy. I mean, just very, there's just these, essentially, there was a time long before where we didn't look at things. I mean, we were content with what we had. We bought what we needed. And his entire job was to convince, the U.S., a great big deal of the U.S., to learn to buy things they didn't need. And it was very, very interesting. Depressing documentary, but interesting. And this sort of falls into that, probably not as neuroscience based back then, but I think that there was definitely
Neuropsychology.
He was Freud's son. I don't think that's
or Freud's marketing psychology.
There's any.
So, what's interesting, Brooke, is that example you gave about really just convincing women and hiring them to smoke cigarettes all at the same time in a social setting.
It was also paired with a moment like where it was like the moment that they said something like light your torch, and boom, they lit their cigarettes.
That is
something emotional.
Part of an example in neuromarketing called social proof, where the proof of something working or being acceptable socially is done in a social setting, and it reflects on other people's behavior. An example of this in coaching is if you knew somebody who had a coach, and because of that, you got your own coach. It's a form of social proof.
I would apply that too. It's also a hurdle in coaching as well, because there are circles and things that are out there that do not favor coaching. And it's widely accepted within that circle that coaching is, a number of things that it may or may not be. And so it's a hurdle you have to cross in those groups, whereas in other groups, it's not a hurdle because it's socially accepted. Everybody in that group is okay with coaches and coaching. Jen, you spoke to your family members sort of making fun of you for hiring a coach, right? So not social proof right there. Like that's not, I mean, you went against social proof in that case.
I'm used to being the black sheep in a lot of spaces, so it was what it was.
I found that fascinating too, that when they spoke to Apple users and versus Samsung and Galaxy users, essentially Samsung users, that the Apple users got defensive for their brand and but the Samsung users were indifferent to the brand. They just did not like Apple. They just so like their brand was not Apple. Like that was really ultimately what their brand was.
Android users are just a bunch of big haters, is all.
Hey, I'm an Android user. We just don't like Apple because we feel like
I only hate things that are inferior and are terrible. So there you go.
I kind of agree. I feel like you get ripped off in the process too. Let's not talk about that. But there's all these things that go on. I think one of the fascinating things in this is the concept, and I don't know that I 100% subscribe to it, but it's not something that I don't consider, is that much of our decision making is done subconsciously, and then much of our justifying of that decision is what happens consciously. So we decide something on an emotional level and then justify it in a number of ways using our frontal cortex, that the non-lizard brain, right? So mind you, there's, like Anthony said, there are arguments that say that's not 100% true, but what they have proven is that it's definitely, we are definitely influenced subconsciously far more than we realize. And even when we know that we're being influenced subconsciously, we still manage to be influenced subconsciously. Like a hurdle we can never get over. It just built into us innately. Maybe it'll take like 8 generations of awareness before we start seeing the ability for us to be like numb to this kind of influence. But the reality is right now we are definitely influenced on a subconscious level. Mm-hmm. We're talking about all this. What were your like primary takeaways as you went over this stuff?
I'll go if no one's jumping at this question. So I wrote down colors and sound, which is why I realized color was so important to me when I was building my website. I was very bothered at like something being too bright, too loud. So I wanted to make my colors feel calm and warm. What I thought was really interesting too was fonts. So they said, if you want to say something convincing, you want to say it with a simple font because you don't want to create friction in reading and translating it. So if you write something that you want to convince someone of in a complex font, that's going to create friction in that translation, and they're probably just going to, let it go. And it got me thinking about, there's a couple websites that I've made note of in my head of like, I won't even read what's on this person's page because the font bothers me that much.
Everything in cursive.
No, but the flip side is though, there are times to use that because you commit things to memory better if the font is complex. So it's not saying like you need a giant paragraph and then you're going to commit it all to memory. It's short, concise, simple things will allow you to commit things to memory quicker, and hold it there because there's something that just goes on. I'm not sure what it is. I'm sure there is an explanation, but knowing that, Jen's a great example. If you're building a website, right, utilizing those tools can make your website more effective and one that people are more willing to navigate and read. This kind of, I think we should share in this blog our research for folks so that they can sort of get what these are. Eyeline is another one, right? Where the
eyeliner?
No, where your eyes are looking on. So if we have a picture of a human being and they're looking up this way, I'm looking away from like where my name is, okay? But if I want people to look at my name, I'm going to look down at my name. And our eyes will naturally follow the eye line of the person that is there. And Anthony, the proof of things like this is there are actual services that you can hire. It's like, it looks like an infrared reading essentially of how people navigate your website. And it's essentially showing where people's mouses linger, where they are click, where they stop and pause. Wow. And as they utilize your website, you can look at that
build a heat map of your website.
So you can see where people are experiencing friction, what is stopping them, what is keeping them scrolling, and sort of identify what is or is not working within the website, which is a very cool tool. Don is wondering if the letters mean after our teams. Those are our names. Those are post nominals. So they're all credentials or certifications we have obtained.
Mine's actually my last name. My full name is Anthony Lopez, MCPC.
Yes. That's your full name. Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
that's my full name.
So mine means accredited. Wait, what is it? What is it?
Associate.
Associate credentialed coach. Lisa means professional credentialed
Mhm.
coach.
Yeah.
And those two, the ACC and PCC, are credentials from the ICF.
Mhm.
Mine, Jen, and Jerome's are certificates from Certified Life Coach Institute, the best institute for life coaching on the planet.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so back to our topic at hand. What other takeaways did you have in this space?
So showing people what to do with, if from a larger perspective, I already talked about social proof. If somebody is doing something, other people are going to start following the bandwagon. That can apply to like testimonials and things like that.
Mm.
To get more neuroscience-y is mirror neurons, where literally if I think about or I see something happening in front of me that like is an action, it's the mirror neurons kick in and I'm getting the same feeling. So how this could be applied to, it's like literally showing somebody a video of somebody clicking the buy button on a website would be an example of it. Showing somebody what coaching looks like with you in a coaching session, that will put somebody in their shoes essentially, and the mirror neurons kick in and they empathize and think about what it'd be like in that coaching session themselves.
I call
So-
them mirror neurons selfish filters. Like essentially, like we as we experience these things, we run them through our selfish filters essentially, and we apply everything to us, even subconsciously. And so, it's inevitable that when we can't experience life, and Anthony can get philosophical with this if he wants, but we cannot experience life without running it through our own subjective filter, right? Running through our experience. We're not capable of being truly objective as people. And so knowing that and showing that, showing happy people. So this is another example. Smile sell. So if you have smiles on your website, you're going to sell more products. Why? Because you're showing happy human beings, and we all are seeking happiness. And so we're going to be more inclined to purchase something from a website with smiles than a website with a bunch of grumpy people. The other they've found, like with commercials, they'll show a commercial after, let's say there's a drama and something horrible happens in this drama. Let's pick something terrible. A child dies, right? No company wants to run their commercial after that scene. And like, because after that scene, nobody is buying anything. But like after, let's say, a wedding scene or a proposal scene, and everybody's happy and cheery on that show, people are much more inclined to have a positive reaction to the commercial shown after that. So commercial buyers will be asking about what is happening prior to their commercial spot before they pay for it and choose to advertise in that spot.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because there was there's like a meme that was going on. It was like a Nickelodeon meme where it'd be like at the very bottom of the TV, it'd be like SpongeBob laughing, and it says "up next," but above is this like horribly sad, depressing scene that just like was at odds. So Brooke is kind of right about that. You're not going to find a lot of people who know what they're doing as terms of marketing goes. You're not going to find a lot of that happening where you have contrasting emotions like that.
Now you might be able to sell like life insurance maybe after that. But
child insurance.
That's terrible. I don't think that exists. So these are all things to consider, right? As we go out as coaches and present ourselves to the world, things to consider. I have a question though. Do we feel manipulative when we have these tools in our tool belt?
Yeah, I'm manipulating the feelings of people to get what I want.
I'd say no. There was a point in time when I first came across the concept of neuroscience, especially neuromarketing, where I figure, since I understand the back end of this stuff, now I'm going to be more likely to kind of be put off by particular advertisements, maybe some of these particular techniques. But now, as I've come in to grow into the person that I am, I actually really appreciate really good, really sound tactics being presented to me, as opposed to these really just quick in your face and not very well done tactics
Yeah,
that
hokey.
speak about.
I'm not into hokey. Yeah.
As long as you're presenting it in a manner that I think is respectful, you're appreciating your whoever it is, your client's time when you're doing what you are doing as far as these tactics are concerned. I don't think it's necessarily taking advantage of anyone.
But I think it's still, I mean, they're trying to get you to buy a product or a service. So it's still, I think, manipulation, but being able to discern that that's what they're doing, I think is helpful too. And
So
I think that's what you're saying, Jerome. Is that right?
Yes. Also, I think there's a huge, what I found most interesting about going over all of this research, there's a huge aspect of brand identity. And especially with life coaching, I think that's huge. The brand is you. You are the brand. It's a lot different than if you were selling a product that's physical, for example, iPhones. You guys are talking about how even in the instance where a product is probably, and I would agree, Androids are better phones overall, I think, but I associate with the brand identity of Apple much more than I do with Android. So it's a really interesting space to play in when it comes to life coaching, brand identity, and being able to associate to a brand.
I will tell you, I have moments when I get that liked and somebody repeats back whatever I just said or loved because they have an iPhone. And I feel a little sad that I can't respond with as conveniently and with less what's the word I'm looking for? Less energy. I don't have that shortcut to be able to just respond to somebody and click one button and say something. I have to actually type my words out and think them through. So I do get a little jealous in those moments. But there's also like a clickiness that goes on with Apple users. I've found not being one. It's like you're so cute. You don't use an Apple.
Well, okay, but that leads to some interesting sort of neuromarketing stuff. Is a brand identity, like you have your identity based off of the brands you use, but let's maybe get away from like brands of like commodities. Let's just say, to put that all in one category. What about brands around people or things? So like I know, yeah, celebrities.
I love Pedro Pascal. I'm just gonna say it.
Doesn't everyone I
like who he is. I like what he stands for. I like his personality. I like everything about him. I have bought hook, line, and sinker into that man's brand. 100% have.
Jen doesn't know who that is.
Oh my God!
No.
Do you not know who that is?
Why are you outing me?
He's the Mandalorian, and he also is in The Last of Us, and he was in Narcos, and
he was in Star Wars, or not.
I haven't seen any of that.
Yeah.
Anthony's gonna get mad at me because he's gonna say that. Well, I like weird. I like people that are unconventionally good looking, I guess you could say.
He's ugly hot. I've told you this. He's ugly hot.
Yeah.
It's not hot ugly.
No, hot ugly is like people who are like trying to be normally hot,
it's the other way
but they're
around.
just ugly. Yeah, ugly hot is like you're weird looking, but you're good looking.
What are you guys talking about? That's so rude.
We're talking about the neuroscience of what attracts people.
Where it deviated to, that wasn't part of it.
That doesn't. Brooke, you got away from the point
voice
as well because.
Yeah, what was your point, Anthony?
Well, Pedro Pascal would only work is if we were like production managers or casting agents, and then we could talk about Pedro Pascal as a brand.
What about
what I'm talking about? Hold on. For coaches, do those kinds of people exist in maybe the self-help or coaching world? Those people
Tony
who are
Robbins.
brands.
Tony Robbins. Yeah, there's a time. Brene Brown, which it's the self-help world is the wide world that we go into, that self-help world. And then
there's even like Eckhart Tolle and even like Russell Brand.
Russell Brand, yes. There's
Russell Brand is also the owner. What was that self-help
What's the neuroscience guy too that I just don't buy his stuff? I'm sorry. He's always talking about the pituitary gland. Wait, oh, it's gonna kill me. It's all the spooky woo-woos who I appreciate. I'm not saying I don't appreciate you. I do.
I don't appreciate them.
I'm wearing my crystal bracelets.
Who are you talking about? I really
always
want
talking about how you can slow time down and speed time down with your pituitary gland, and he is he's a little more worried. Like, he is a doctor, so he has Dr. Joe Espinoza.
Oh, Joe Dispenza? Oh, I love him.
Joe Dispenza. Yeah, Joe
I
Dispenza.
love him.
Okay, but to sort of round out my point that I was trying to make, though, with the brand identity, people with influencers as well, especially like if you think about TikTok, Instagram, streamers, YouTube, celebrities, things like that, they have a brand identity that the consumer has an identity and is granted an identity by virtue of liking this person or participating in their content or buying their products.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that every coach in the world, though, needs to be an influencer.
No.
But they also need to consider their brand, which now brings me back to the South
wait.
Park episode.
So it says, but why do they buy into those things? Why? Because at some point we have connected with them. And at some point they have said something that speaks to us, that connects with us, that we identify with.
Mm-hmm.
And if they continue to do that, what happens is we begin to identify with who they are, what they present, and have an innate trust that is built in with them and what they present to us. And it becomes something that becomes part of our own identity, right? I believe in this person's stuff. Like Jen just said, I love Joe Dispenza. I believe what this person and what they put out to be true. I believe that they're helping. I believe they have something good to offer. My belief in that is enough for me to identify with it. It's enough for me to buy into that brand, because I don't want to look like a fool. I don't want to look like, right? We've got these ego things that come in as people, and I will defend the things I believe in. And so it becomes very important, right? I'm sure there are people out there in the world that could walk up to us and say, life coaching is total BS.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys, Lisa, Jen, do you have an emotional reaction to that when you hear that at all?
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Yeah, there's time. It depends on where I am in that moment, who's saying it, how they're saying it. But absolutely, because we all have experienced how it has, and what they're talking about, I don't know enough. So, and like Jen said, tell me more. What gives you that impression? I might be in that place to find out, or I might not. What are your thoughts, Jen?
Well, I could see how I could let it bother me, but it doesn't, because I just think that person doesn't know enough yet. And it's really that simple. Like, I see them as just not aware. Mm-hmm. And so of course they hold the belief that they do. They don't have the information that I have. And so I'd love to share it with them if they want to talk about it.
Okay, let's kick it up a notch, though.
Wait. Hold on before we do. Mm-hmm. But so that coach, you are all a member of the Life Coach brand, right? And when Jen says, well, I'm happy to share that information with them, that's her defending her brand. That's her defending her belief system. Mm. And this is something we can apply in many ways. Anthony, go ahead.
I was to maybe kick it up an emotional notch. What if instead of saying life coaching is BS, people who buy life coaching are full of BS, or people who practice life coaching are full of BS?
Yeah, I would say I totally understand how you could feel that way and think that way. I myself may at one point have thought and felt that way too, but I've learned from experience, right? From lived experience working with a coach, and then realizing, oh my God, this is so good. I want to go do this for other people. That, yeah, that's not how I think and feel anymore. So it's just a
Jen
difference.
just keeps on defending life coaching.
Right?
She can't help herself.
I would say, tell me more about that, right? Like, tell me, like, and listen and hear them. But that's a whole other reason I would do that. That's sort of taking us out of that life coaching space.
I would fight a person who said that to me. Just
You would
FYI.
fight them. Oh my
I'd
god.
punch him in the face.
But ultimately, these are things that we have placed our belief in, and we have, and when people are buying our services, they're doing the same thing. When we hand over our hard-earned money, right? We are essentially saying, I trust and believe that what I'm paying for is going to serve this purpose. And we are so, when the neuroscience comes in to this, is we can be so wanting for us not to fall. This is I can't remember what is it sunk cost fallacy? I think it might be sunk cost fallacy. We can be so attached to not wanting to be wrong or have wasted our money that we will become defensive about sometimes things that maybe are not serving us, and sometimes things that maybe aren't as great as they are. But that's because we want. These are all emotional triggered neuro. This is when we start to study these things and look at these things as a marketer, we can take this knowledge and we can apply it in a bunch of different spaces. And does it feel like manipulation? Maybe.
I think it is. We had this discussion in the Emotions 101 episode about emotional manipulation. Stop trying to make it sound like we're not emotionally manipulating people, because we are. It's your hang-ups about emotional manipulation that is the problem, though.
I agree, and that's where things like authenticity come in, where we go, hey, I've been here too. I'm putting my emotional foot forward. I know I'm doing this to try to connect with people. But if I believe in what I'm selling, and if what I am selling will actually help that person, I feel like it's okay, right? There's no issue there for me whatsoever. Where I get mad is when you see, Jen gave us an example of somebody who put on, and this is an emotional, manipulative, neuroscience use of neuromarketing to some degree. It was that headline. Jen, what was it? It was a marketing headline. Like, this proven, the number one way to make six figures.
Or something like that. Like, here's the number one. And I'm like, but the number one for who? Because that might not be my number one because of me. So
here's the data. Right? That's deliberately, though, playing on our we want the number one. We want the top solution. We're going to buy into it, right? The other thing too in that space is when using the words like best. How do we know something is best? There has to be, for us to use, we use the word best, but we had to be chosen as the best before I would be willing to use that word, because it would feel very inauthentic that if I just decided to put our best hat on us as a school without an outside source giving us a title of best. And that was for me as a marketer. I did not run any ads that said best until we were named the best. And once we were, I was like, yeah, I'm putting that everywhere. You bet you I am. But that's because I didn't want to lie or be manipulative in that space. Because I know that people are drawn to things that say best and top. One thing, what's interesting, when you write ads for Google Ads, you're not allowed to use excessive capitalization, and you're not allowed to use exclamation points. They will flag your ads and block them. You will not be allowed to run them if you have all cap words and if you have exclamation points. Why do you think that is?
Because people are sensitive and feel like they're being yelled at.
And also because,
Yes.
your eyes are drawn. We're naturally, as people, drawn to more caps. People put emojis because we can affect emotion using an emoji. All of this is used in marketing, and it
I
is
only speak and type in emojis.
Exactly.
So I was wrong, is what you're saying.
What?
I was wrong about the reason. The reason.
Oh, I thought you were being like funny.
No, I think that's got to be partially true. You don't want people not going to your platform because of annoying ads, So
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I guess so.
But it's also built into Google Ads as a system, because they do not want some ads to perform better than others because somebody chose to use all caps. And they also want their ads to look professional. And if one person gets to use all caps and their ads are performing better, everybody's going to start doing that. It's a snowball
You have
effect.
a screaming match all
And then
over
screaming
the internet.
Oh gosh, some people won't be able to handle that.
Right? We don't want to. It's triggering.
What are some? Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
on, Brooke. No, you go.
One of my favorite parts in this, and I think it's because I'm a designer, is color science, like color psychology, and how the use of color, like you mentioned, Jen, can really affect emotion in people. Doing creative work in a room that is blue can be really difficult, but if you put oranges and reds in your spaces people tend to be more creative. Like, it's interesting that our heart rates actually pound faster when we see red colors. When we see blue, they actually slow down. So like there's been studies done where they've measured they've taken heart monitors and they've shown people different things and seen the effects of them and how it affects. And now that's been applied to brand colors. You'll notice almost every bank brand has the color blue because it generates trust.
Yeah.
It calms your nerves. It makes you go, I'm going to put my money there. You'll notice that food brands a lot have red and yellow because it makes us hungry. Our heart speeds up. We get hungry. We tend to like food better if it's set on a red plate versus a blue or green plate. Just these little things that happen.
A yellow plate. Ugh. Could you imagine eating a yellow plate?
Bro. But it's there though. Think about McDonald's colors. Those are chosen on purpose. Each of those colors, all of them, very deliberately chosen because of the effect they have on people. What else did you think in this?
What colors? Oh, well, I want to ask you, what colors then would I be if I'm a coach? I'm making a website. What kind of colors am I going to use?
I would say the most important thing is making sure that your text is heavily contrasted off whatever background you choose.
That's a good point.
People, I don't remember the percentages, but people are far more inclined to click a button that is red or orange or green over the color of other buttons. But there are other tricks that you can use. Outlining your button, having your button flash, there's all these things that will get people more likely to click your button.
Having a button be a pop-up, so when somebody's trying to exit your website, it goes to...
That can also be insanely annoying.
Don't do that.
Actually, if there's any pop-up on the screen, I don't care what it is, it's closed. I am not reading it. Absolutely not. No.
It depends. I'm not going to say that 100% because there's definitely pop-ups I pay attention to. But that's, I think, minuscule. I think worrying about what color your buttons are and what color and having it be specific colors is really not as important as making sure your message is clear. You can read what's on there. It's going to connect emotionally with people, and that whatever colors you choose speak to your brand, speak to your message. So if you have a client that is spooky woo woo, right, and is hippy dippy, which I love these people. I'm aging into a hippie, and that's why I can say this. You might choose green or purple. Those colors tend to say what that is, right? I get there. I know what this is. I found these are my people, right? So they're using my colors. And I think that is more important than I'm going to choose the perfectly, red button they're going to click and this and that. I think it's more important that whatever colors you choose are consistent with your message and who you are and what your customer likes and what they like to see on a website. Which can be different from person to person. So I don't think you have to put a lot of stock in. Mind you, our buttons are orange. So
we got an exciting website.
But it's also blue, which a lot of schools do have blue in there as well. So
back when we first got started, we were a lot of browns.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was very brown.
Oh my gosh, a lot of browns.
It's
I
interesting.
wish I could have seen what that website looked
Yeah, me
like.
too.
Oh gosh.
I'm glad it is different.
Can we change the background that we're on right now?
Yeah.
Because right now we're on like red, orange, yellow.
Yes.
What if
Well,
we
that's
had
creative.
right? But what if we have a blue background for more trust?
Mm.
What is it?
I actually
I
like
feel.
Look at that.
Oh,
I go, ew. I don't like it because it reminds
I
me of
feel
a Windows
sleepy
background.
and tired.
I feel like
And
we're at a
I'll be honest,
telemarketing conference.
It does.
What's the most insane background you can find, Jerome?
Oh my goodness.
Well, I can upload a very insane one. This one's pretty wild.
But that's the thing. So let's
Oh, wow.
we've talked a little bit
I like
about
that one too, but it's a little crazy.
we talked a little bit about color, but one thing that I think we haven't talked about is sound and how
Mhm.
important sound is. And that really carries over into when you when you make videos, and maybe it's also me because I'm affected by sound as a person. The having a good sound where people can clearly hear what you are saying in a video and things like that is so important,
Mhm.
and can make people check in or check out really fast, establish trust and lose trust really fast. I know that from film school. Also, have you ever been on a website that had noise?
Yeah, I hate that.
Oh, I don't like it either.
I
Everybody-
absolutely hate that. Don't ever do that when you
Visceral
make a
reaction
website.
is like,
Are you thinking about like the landing page where it's automatically going to just start playing something for you?
something.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Like a MySpace page.
Yeah.
Right, right.
It's horrible. I feel assaulted. Like, don't do that. If like there's something where like it pops up on my screen and like it's a spinning wheel and I hear tick, 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 I'm like, "Nah." It's like nails on a chalkboard, right? So like knowing that and how but if we do a video, let's say, and we have soft music playing in the background, and this video goes along with it, that can be something that is very beneficial. If I want to give a really strong and message that assaults the senses, I might add some really loud, crazy music and make pop-up sounds when things pop up on the screen to get us to pay attention. All of that is neuromarketing. When we hear boing, and when we think of pop-up video, right? Like, it's to draw our attention to that sound to get us to stop doing whatever we're doing and focus there. And so you can utilize those kind of tools, and that's a use of neuromarketing for sure. They did a study, like I know they mentioned the one there where the bananas on the dark shelves versus the light shelves. So they had white shelves and they played light music, and people bought the bananas off of the light much more. They also did a similar study. They were selling something and they played like metal music in the store, and nobody bought. Like, and people were like,
That'd be cool. I'd be walking around the store just like,
go to shop and like, but no, that metal does not make us want to purchase things as human beings.
Definitely not bananas.
I'm
Certainly not banana. No.
That's cool.
But we can, as a coach, how can I utilize these things? When I create a video, I can make sure that what I'm doing is putting my listener at ease, right? Is getting them and creating a safe space for them to enter into that space and listen to what it is that I have to talk about and what it is that I'm selling. Or I can, instead of creating a safe space, I can assault their senses, depending on what your message is and if that works. Another trick is to invite people to do things before you sell to them. This is a neuromarketing hack, and you'll find if you
This
see
is
it
like a social hack too. Like if
Yeah.
you want somebody to like you and you've never like met them before, ask them to do a favor for you. They will like you.
They will, yes, and
What?
it means
You never heard that before, Jen?
If we don't know each other, you're going to ask me to do a favor for you?
Yeah, and if it could be something small, like I could be.
hand me that pen, or if you're in the same room.
Oh, could you grab me some napkins while you're up?
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Not like, can you give me $10,000? Just a little favor.
Give me a ride to the airport.
Yeah, not
level.
that kind of stuff.
It's a little
Yeah. I would
Little
say
tiny
typically,
favors.
yeah, typically the interaction starts with you too as the marketer. So you're doing something for them. If they enjoy it, then ask for something in return.
Yeah, so
Straight out
basically
the gate, do something.
you share something, a tidbit with them, and then you invite them and you ask their permission. Can I talk to you about something that I'm excited to share with you? And
This sounds like the people who come knocking on your door.
I don't know.
Have you heard the good news?
our ears
Brooke?
perk up. But the reason that is so prevalent is because by asking permission, if we give you that permission, we're far more open to whatever it is you are selling than if you just come up and go, I'm going to talk to you about, I'm going to sell you this cup of lemon juice right here. Like if I say, can I talk to you about how this lemon juice has changed my life? That's going to, and I say, okay, I'm much more willing to listen when you ask my permission.
I'm willing to hear what sort
I
of
go,
tale you're about to spin.
You're going to listen right now, right? Because it doesn't feel forced on you at that point.
So how would you use that, like on social media or on your website or on YouTube? I mean, you ask people, do you want to hear about this? What do you want to know about?
Leave a comment in the messages if you want to hear more.
Here's what I come across sometimes. If you guys want to learn more about this, subscribe to my Patreon for exclusive information, yada, yada, yada. If you guys would like X, Y, and Z, do this.
And that's what leave a heart in the chat if you want to find out more. I'm going to give you a nugget of information. If you want more in this space, reach out and let me know. If you want more, click here. That's asking permission. Another way of asking permission too is a carousel. A carousel that says top 5 reasons your life is failing, right? And I know there's 5 dots after that. I have the choice to cycle through those dots and read them. By giving me the choice and not just assaulting me with it, I am now more open to the information that's going to follow.
Wow.
It's 100% true. Like, because you've given me the option of ignoring it or flipping through. But if you just throw it in my face, I'm less likely to listen. But if you tease me with it, if you make me curious and don't force it on me, allow me to be the one to choose, I'm much more open and receptive to that message.
Here's another one that gets even more tailored to the individual too. A little neuromarketing tip that we use as well: addressing people by name.
Yes.
Which is also another social hack as well. If I meet somebody new, I can address them by name and ask them for a favor. You can also address people by name in your marketing by, if you're like automating emails or forms or things like that, there's conditional formatting and ways where you can, if they tell you their name, you can just have your program, whatever you're using for, like, let's say Google Forms or FormStack or whatever email marketing that Wix has, you can just insert people's names so that when they get the email, it's addressed specifically to them. So it'll say like, hey, Jerome, here's our coaching 102 promo code, rather than it's more personal.
But except when they say, hey, and then it's supposed to have a name insert.
Hey,
and then it's like hash symbol. Hey, parentheses, insert student name.
Yes, there you go.
Or it's a wrong name. Hey, Joe. And I'm like,
any good service will have a default. Any good service will have a default. Will have a default that you can fill in. That
yes,
will,
I think FormStack has a default.
Somebody who is lazy or doesn't know that they should have updated the default, so you can change it to say, "Hey, you," when the name fails, and that should exist. So, and if it doesn't, you need a new service. But yes, that is absolutely. These are like all these little tools that you'll start to see. One of the things, whenever you see this is really trending now in marketing, it's usually because what has happened is they have found that more sales are happening when X, Y, or Z people are doing X, Y, or Z, and that's typically because of some kind of something we're responding to. We respond better to video and moving objects, right? We respond better to bold text on a plain background that we can actually read. Boom, we're going to be more inclined to read that. All of that is neuromarketing because we're thinking about how our brains work as human beings. And we're tailoring our marketing to function better for the person that is reading it and be more effective. And I think that that's a very powerful tool. And if we can, why not use it, right? Why not utilize it? If you believe in your message and you want to get it out there in a way that people are going to read it and respond to it. And it's going to sink in with them more.
Well, what's the purpose if you don't want them to do that, right? You're not marketing, and then you're not. And why not make it work to your advantage at the same time to your potential clients' advantage?
But what's funny is I have had folks who have such a visceral reaction to the idea of marketing. They have such a I don't want to market to people response. I don't want to do that. I don't want to response, that they're almost shooting themselves in the foot, right? They almost, because what they're saying is I'm not willing to put myself out there at that point. And I'm also not willing to utilize tools that might be effective. And I think, Anthony, you were there. We talked to somebody who he was so viscerally opposed to marketing.
Marketing was the devil.
It was the devil. Said. And he was like, yeah, how do I don't know how I'm going to move through this. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And we had to talk him through that visceral reaction of, okay, if you want to do this and if you want to put yourself out there, at some point you have to be willing to sell yourself and utilize these tools. And why not set yourself up for success? I think it's different. Subliminal messaging is one thing, right? Pumping chemicals into a room that's going to make somebody, pumping oxytocin into a room to make people buy things. We know is without them knowing, that is absolutely a manipulation. The reason every affiliate marketer has to have it listed on their blogs, on their sites, on all of their stuff, that they're an affiliate for the things they are selling, is because if they didn't, people feel highly manipulated at that point, right? So by saying, I am an affiliate of this company, I'm making money by saying this, people feel less manipulated. And I think that's sort of if I'm looking at an influencer, I trust them innately. So they've got to be transparent, and they've got to be transparent about being paid for the things that they are hawking, essentially. And where we get mad is when those things happen and we don't know about it and we don't realize it and we feel manipulated at that point. Which happens apparently. What Facebook do?
There's also spaces where it's just completely obvious that someone's just selling to you to sell, which is also a huge put-off. And that's where I had a little bit of trouble kind of going into marketing, understanding that there is a difference between selling to sell and then selling with marketing. I think the marketing part is a whole lot, in my mind, less evil than selling just to sell. For an example, I don't know if you guys are aware of like ADP or anything like that. I know people who work for these types of companies, and they could care less about their clients, their customer base. They're selling to sell because they have this quota to meet. And once they hit that quota, they'll do it however they want. Then they're satisfied.
I had a security guy sit on my floor after I had told him, he was supposed to come in and we were talking about the system. It was supposed to be like a technical thing to see if he was supposed to be a tech guy to see if he could install and if it could work. And I decided in the process, I didn't want it. He literally sat down on my floor because he had to be there for an allotted amount of time, would not leave, kept pressuring me. And I was like, I'm writing the worst review.
Harassment.
Harassment. It was full blown harassment. And he was like a sociopath. I mean, the fact that he could do that, I was like, I'm uncomfortable. Get out of my house. And he wouldn't leave. Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah, I should have.
Harold had an experience like that. When we were back in California, we were getting an air conditioning or something like that. Anyway, the guy was sitting across from him and trying to do his utmost selling. Now you're talking to a guy, Harold, who was very technology savvy, mechanically sound. So he started spouting things off, and Harold goes, no, that doesn't. No. And the guy kept going and going and going. And then before you knew it, he was writing fluently upside down. So the Harold could see the numbers. Harold goes, "Get
Wow.
out of my house. This is not happening." Same thing like you, Brooke, is that, he kind of just sat there and kept trying to push forward. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know what I felt manipulated by on social media? When someone has used a filter that is changing the structure of their face and I don't know it. I think that's what they look like. And I'm like, wow, how does that person look like that?
I went to this, and I'm okay with it now. Like, I'm okay with it, but I was shocked. There was
Same.
a woman who does Botox, fillers, things like that, all of these things. That I went to her company, and I thought, well, she looks made up, like, not like, but I assumed she would at least have looked like the pictures, but she was so filtered and I was like, whoa. And this is bad for your brand, because if they see you here, but I still ended up using her services, but she wasn't the one that gave them, somebody else. And but I was like, I still remember, I'm still like, oh god, fake, gross, fake, like, so, like, fake upon fake upon fake, like,
right, yeah.
So here's a neuromarketing tip for the coaches who do their coaches online. It's called the halo effect, where if you're a good-looking person, people will think that you're more capable, you're smarter, you're such and such. So just always use the filter. Never meet people in person, because if you're coaching people always online and your business is conducted online, no one will know.
no
There
one
you go.
will know.
That's my final marketing tip, because we're about
Oh,
out
we're
of
at
time
time.
now.
I don't agree with that, though, by the way.
It seems like it's a pretty smart and well thought out neuromarketing tip. So I'm going to stand by my advice
We're
to
gonna
all you people online.
write a blog around this and share a bunch of tools and things that you can use in your website, and pick and choose, utilize them as you see fit and in your way. But always know that you can apply every neuromarketing tool on the planet, but if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't believe in what you have to sell, and actually create something that will help somebody else, and put yourself out there, all of the neuromarketing in the world is probably not going to help you. So what's most important is figuring out who you want to help and how you can help them, and really believing in what you have to offer. I think that for me is the best possible sales tactic, honestly. As we finish up our coach marketing 101. Final thoughts?
What's our new topic once we're
yeah.
done with marketing?
I have consulted AI. I have
You consulted me consulting AI.
Yes, I am not settled on it, but I think it's going to be something in the realm of controversial coaching, something or others. So it should be interesting. I wish I could we're just going to tease it. You'll know what it is next week, but we're going to definitely a topic that is a little less dry than ICF and marketing, and little more gives us more ability to explore maybe areas of coaching that make people uncomfortable. So
nice.
That should be fun.
I would say marketing is a space that you have to, as a business, embrace. Find a way to work with it in the ways that today are necessary for you to be found. Be authentic to you in your marketing as well. Just like Jen, she doesn't want to be anything than who she is and what she is, and she definitely wants you interested in her coaching model. That's it.
Yeah, I want to say with marketing, it would be a disservice to you, your brand, and your company to not understand some of these techniques that we've been trying to share with you and utilize them. But back to what Brooke is saying, I think that belief that what you have is a good product, that belief that the company that you represent is a good space for others to indulge in and take part in, I think that is core to having it all come together and actually work for you. So I know there's a lot of things about marketing that can seem a little icky, and they probably are if you don't truly believe in what you're putting out to the public. But if you do, I think a lot of these tactics are going to be critical in advancing your company to places that you want it to be.
You can have the best thing in the world, but if nobody knows about it,
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And I want to say that when you believe in what you can provide others with, the service of coaching, when you believe in it, show up, put your face out there. It doesn't matter what you look like, Anthony, because you are an example of what's possible for other people. And you never know who will be inspired by you showing up.
Mhm.
My final actual thought is we're talking about neuroscience or neuromarketing and its basis in neuroscience. Neuromarketing isn't just a set of principles you follow and then you'll get results. You have to treat it like a science. Collect data, compare techniques and results, make educated decisions based off of the things you actually see and do. Just don't take our word for it. Try it out and compare different things and find out what works best for you, and treat it like a science that marketing is. That's my final thought.
and when you conduct an experiment, right? How does conducting an experiment work, Anthony?
You have a hypothesis. You figure out a way to test it out. So, like, make a marketing campaign. Compare results. Evaluate, what happened. Find a way to figure out, did I get the results I want, and what data I have. Make a conclusion, and then keep reiterating the process.
And retesting. And
And
that's where that concept of A/B testing and all that comes in. If I have something to sell, I can write 50 different titles about it, right? I can write 4 different titles about it. I can write 2, and I can put them out there that have differences, subtle differences between one or the other, and I can see which one works better, right? I can put the same thing out to 2 different audiences and see which audience responds better. These are the things that we can do to sort of test what we're doing and see what works and know how to maneuver in these spaces in a scientific way. And then practicing that over and over and over again, right? Going back and using that data, reusing that data, testing and actually looking at what the results are, and not just throwing them out, right? Knowing that even when something fails, we can learn from it.
Yeah. I mean, we've got data from like blogs from years ago that, are still relevant today, and things of that nature. So treat it like a science. Don't just treat it as principles that you just need to follow blindly and things will work out, because that's probably not going to be the case, and you're going to walk away from neuromarketing thinking you were, fooled.
And also
really
know that things change. Yeah. So you got to keep retesting, because maybe one day it works and the next day it doesn't, and it's because of something else that's out there, and you have to be willing to just keep rolling with it, flexing. Marketing is for humans. Human beings are people. They're changing, they're breathing, they're different. So you got to sort of stay on the pulse and be willing to move with them. So,
all right, that should wrap up our live. See you guys next week. Be sure to take our classes where you can learn more about marketing on day 3 of Coaching 101.